We have a full agenda tonight, so let's call the meeting of the February 5th Park Board to order. And we'll start with the consideration of the Park Board minutes from January 8th. Is there a motion on the table?
Move to approve.
One second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion, changes, additions, deletions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Item 3 is consider implementation of the Kids Don't Float program at the Hudson boat launch, sponsored by the DNR. And Sheriff Tim is here tonight. Yep, come on up to the podium and tell us about your program.
All right. My name is Tim Kufis. I'm a deputy with the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office. I'm currently in charge of recreational aspects of the Sheriff's Office, so that puts me on the St. Croix River a lot, as well as other bodies of water doing boat patrol in the summer. And last year, the Wisconsin DNR started to advertise a program that they just did I guess a very limited, I apologize, let me shut all this off. They just did a very limited trial run last year of the Kids Don't Float program, and it's basically a life jacket loaner station. It's 100% funded through the DNR. As far as the purchase of all materials to build this station, signage, and life jackets, everything's provided. Basically, the Sheriff's Office would go into an agreement with the DNR to build it and find a place to put it and make sure that somebody's watching it. And that's where you guys come into play. Obviously, the boat launch that you guys have on St. Croix River is very busy. A lot of people go in and out of it, and this would be a perfect spot to put this life jacket station so that if anyone did forget a life jacket for anyone that was going boating, or if an unexpected person came, there would be a life jacket, conceivably available for them. I guess I would be taking responsibility of putting it in place if there's high water, taking it away, and storing it for the season, for the winter. I'm just requesting permission to place it there, and I guess I needed to know the steps to be able to do that.
Any questions?
Yeah, just real quick. Would the DNR provide the materials, or would you actually construct it and have it just ready to go, or how does that work?
It would go either way. They'd either provide the materials, or they would reimburse the Sheriff's Office. And they specifically provide all the life jackets because they're marked, DNR loaner program or something to that effect.
So is this like an honor system where if people need a jacket, they just borrow one, and then at the end of the day they drop it back off, or do they leave an ID or something? Or
it's basically, it's on the honor system. It is a sheltered bin where the throwable life jackets or the wearable life jackets, which are from sizes kids all the way up to XL, they're in this bin, and you take what you need, and if they're wet when you bring them back, there's drying hooks for them, and I guess there's always the chance of theft, but I'd rather provide life jackets for people who don't have them than worry about theft.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
is this attached to the ground somehow? I know that you said you'll move it if high water comes in.
Correct.
Just looking at the construction, if it turns into just a fairly large piece of wood, I just fear the wind tipping it over, and just for looks,
Right.
is it
Oh,
gonna
absolutely.
look like a piece of garbage sitting down there when it tips over.
During the trial program, wind was an issue with more damaging
That
the
too,
top, and I don't believe that there was any issues with them actually tipping over.
Okay.
I obviously have not built one, and I've not personally seen one, but I'd imagine that it's a substantial construction where that wouldn't be an issue. But as far as high water goes, I'm on the river a lot. And, you know, if it gets even close, I'd be moving it or taking it away for the time being.
Pat?
Do you want a motion to approve?
Yes.
Okay, I'll so move that we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Tom, what's your thoughts as far as?
I was just going to see, it says it's 100% funded from DNR for materials, so I guess kind of going off Randy or Kurt's question, we would be responsible for construction at that point?
No, I would still be responsible for constructing it. It, you know, typically they want like a youth group or Boy Scouts or something to actually do the construction.
Okay.
And I've actually had Boy Scout groups that are interested in it, but I'm trying to take it one step at a time to make sure that I have a place to put it first.
Right, so basically the sheriff's department's going to handle everything. We're just saying, yeah, you can put this down by the boat launch.
And that
Right.
was my next question was, whereabouts in the boat launch? Do you have a specific idea? We have a general area where there's a pay box and a map of the area and some regulations. I mean, that might be a good spot in that area.
I would agree. I think that's
It's
a
flat.
it's already got points of interest in it, so people are going to be going there anyways.
So maybe the motion should be amended to say, you know, location to be determined by both parties, or,
Okay.
are you okay with that? The seconder? Okay. Well, I'm sure the city council will take care of that. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. It'll go to the city council with our recommendation of approval at the next meeting, which is that, is that on Monday? I think it's probably on Monday, right? Monday, Kurt? Yeah, it's on Monday
Okay.
night. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, moving on, item 4, proposal to improve mounds at Burtmost Park by the Hudson Home and Garden Club. Tom, do you want to introduce it, or should I have Mr. Malik?
Just a little bit of introduction. Mr. Malik and the Garden Club and I have discussed this project, I believe, starting last year or maybe the year before. The city has had issues with maintaining the historic Indian mounds at Prospect Park. For several years, there was issues with just foot traffic and bike traffic and just wearing grooves in the mounds, and then actually some of them were, the tops were concave. Over the years, we tried to restore them, and a few years back, we put posts and fence, posts and chain around them to, you know, keep people away from walking and disturbing them. That worked out pretty well. We tried some plantings and things prior to this. But when the garden club approached me, they had ideas to plant native wild grasses and some plants that were going to be conducive to dry and the hot conditions that are up there. And we just feel that it would be a great project to reduce our maintenance issues. I mean, we have to mow it and maintain it, and I just feel that this is a great project that they have suggested, and I guess I'll let Buck take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I don't want to gild the lily. That's kind of the, Tom came to the bottom line there. I understand that you got from Deb in your homework packets a little description of what the Home and Garden Club agreed to do. They've committed $1,000, and I plan to also apply to the St. Croix Valley Master Gardeners for one of their little grants. $250 or so is their maximum, and maybe cobble together some other funding to take care of it. I don't look to this. We don't look to the city for any contribution for the plants, but we do. We would like help with the mulch, and we'd like the wood chips. That enough of those to do the job, because then it requires much less moisture. Much less watering, holds the moisture better, suppresses the weeds, all that sort of good thing. There's quite a rich history of the Indian mounds. Tom gave me a piece on that, and I consulted a Native American friend of mine, and he gave me a list of plants, but that's kind of a come and go sort of thing. These mounds, according to the history that was done a few years ago, probably go back thousands of years. So they probably even are preceding the Dakota occupation of this area, much less the occupation of this area by the Chippewa. So my friend's Chippewa, and he gave me lists of plants that the Dakota or Chippewa probably would have used in their burial practices, and lo and behold, they're what we now call native plants. In other words, they were the kind of plants that evolved here before white people came, and so they're deep-rooted and they're acclimated to the climate. They're just the natural, ideal thing. And our thought is that once we get them established, after the first year, they will be sort of tall, sort of stiff types of plants. Of course, that would make the mounds a little less attractive to kids climbing on, frankly. And if you see fit at some future time, you might decide that the chain link isn't needed anymore. If so, that's great. But for the time being, we'd leave that and just add the plants and the mulch, and it just wouldn't be the attractive nuisance kind of thing. Bizarrely enough, Tom and I had talked about this, but I hadn't talked with the garden club people, and when they were doing this year's calendar, lo and behold, the picture of the mounds was the very first month's picture. So people signed up from the garden club to help. People signed up for the master gardeners. When I went to their meeting a couple of weeks ago, I've made connections with the schools, the environmental club at the high school, the teachers who advise conservation groups at the middle school, and the Rivercrest and the Willow. And I think we can set up a planting day on a Saturday, and we'll have enough kids, and we'll have enough adults to supervise the kids. And hopefully the weather will cooperate and things will go smoothly. And over the course of a weekend, it'll morph from kind of a turf grass environment to a garden, essentially, on these mounds. But need your approval, need the approval of City Council before we do anything in the park.
Are there any questions?
Just a quick question. Tom, are there signs posted up there now to stay off the mounds, so to speak?
There are.
There are.
Yep, they talk about treating with respect, isn't that the way it is?
I guess the only question or thought I had is, I remember several years ago when we put the chains and stuff around, we had some tribal people here, and they were really sensitive about disturbing the mound area. So, Pat, maybe you can remember that.
They're going to be doing anything. They never used to be that tall.
They never used to be that tall, right? They used to be a lot
They're not
lower.
disturbing anything,
So
yeah.
nothing will be disturbed. So are we talking about just basically flowers over the top, or is it just in some tall grass, or is it
Mixtures of
bushes?
flowers, grasses. If you recognize the types of plants, vervain, lead plant, baptisia. Lead plant and baptisia are both almost kind of woody in their structure. Indian paintbrush, which is stiff but not woody. And then we'll need to use some grasses too, I think, just to have an appropriate mix and to provide some shade. The taller grass is probably the Indian grass is a natural. Needle grass is a nifty one. You're all familiar with the ones that you see around. Okay. Or, take a look at some of the grasses down at that 7th and St. Croix Street river garden. Some of those are pretty grasses too. Some have flowers and some just have nice shaped seeds. And if you get any flack, I really don't object to taking questions from people who say, what are all these weeds doing here? I'm happy to explain the difference between weeds and native plants.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, based on the specifications.
There's a motion on the table to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second
Any further discussion?
I do think that Buck, I think you may want to talk to some spiritual leaders from both tribes, though, just to get a little more background, a little bit of maybe a stamp of approval on this. Possibly somebody in that capacity.
I'll see if I can find anybody that wants to. The one fellow that I did talk to seems to be pretty well connected.
Tom, any concerns about supplying the mulch or potentially watering up there? Is that,
Currently, we have plenty of mulch that we get from trimming of trees and removing of trees, so we have a good supply of mulch, which would be available. The other benefit to this would be, yes, there might be some time involved with the watering portion, but then there would be less time in mowing and weed whipping, which is pretty time consuming. And actually, I think it'd be more respectful, as far as that goes, because then there's no mowers and weed whips and anything in the area. It's just natural flowers and grasses that were probably there originally. So I don't have any problems with that.
and these would be perennial type
Yes, I
plants,
should have
all
said
of
that.
them?
Yep, perennials. And our thought, if we don't have enough money to cover them completely, we'll start from the top. So to some extent, they'll spread downwards. But we thought about doing it the other way around, but it seems more sensible to start from the top.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Recommendation will be to approve to council. Item 5, consider extending the agreement with Doughboys Pizza for lease of the concessions at the bathhouse in Lakefront Park. Tom, you want to introduce that?
Doughboys Pizza ran the concession stand last year. They have requested to run it again. We didn't have any problems or issues last year. It's just very nice to have a vendor down there. Helps from vandalism. I think it's a great thing for the people using the park to have some concessions down there. So,
Any,
Have you had any interest from other parties?
I have not heard of any.
Not really.
Generally, the people who leased it the year prior, if they care to come back, they have first chances at it anyway. That's the way we have allowed it.
is there any further discussion or motion?
Move to approve?
Is a motion to approve, is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? Changes to the agreement? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6, review Grandview Park user fees. Is this in conjunction with item 7, or do we, Deb, what do you want
No, I don't think so.
to, okay. Is there any discussion on, this is from 2012, right? Proposals are on 13.
Bill is here he provided us with the schedule of costs and things like that.
So let's take this up with item 7 since they're kind of similar or related, which is consider extending the lease agreement with Hudson Softball Association for use of the concession stand at Grandview Park. So let's talk about the concession part of the agenda first. Right now, the association pays us 8%. Is that correct? I think I saw, yeah. Bill, do you want to come up and talk about that quick? Let's start with the concession agreement, then we'll talk about the field usage.
The concession agreement was originally brought apart back in, let me see, it was 1995, as I believe was the year that we started that. And there was a 10% fee for concession sales on products that we sold. At that time, it was just regarding alcohol sales, just strictly beer up there, was 10%. Back in 2000 and I'm guessing 9, it was changed to 8% for total concession sales, which included pop, beer, chips, candy, popcorn, stuff like that.
Okay. Any discussion on the concession agreement? Keep it the same or change it? Presume you'd like to see a lower fee?
Well, overall, I take it you guys received the packet that we printed out for everybody, and I hope they had a chance to look at it and kind of think on it a little bit. And if you do look at the package that I sent you regarding overall park fees compared to basically River Falls and New Richmond, who have leagues in our area, the fees, you can see, River Falls does not have a concession stand. They're allowed carry-on product. Richmond does have a concession stand, which is leased back to the Softball Association for $1 per year. And out of that concession agreement with New Richmond, what they do is any money made on that concession stand goes directly back into that park system, the Hatfield Park where all 4 fields are. So the association, per se, doesn't have the money to use as they wish, only as they wish upon the field. So if you look at kind of those aspects, along with our user fees, our user usage, and our light fees, and I don't want to jump ahead to the park costs, but you can see overall on the whole format of the program there that you'll see that we are anywhere from 70 to 100+% higher than our competing cities as New Richmond and River Falls for total overall costs to use the fields up there. Where Hudson's per game, based on 16 games, if you use all our fees in there, we're at $43.13 per game. River Falls is $28.44. New Richmond is $21.88. So the fees, depending on how you want to look at the situation, relatively speaking, is quite high. We as an organization do believe that we do got to pay our share, which we don't have an issue. And if you, like I say, if you jump again to the program I gave you or sent to you, you can see back in 2007, our total field fee, including everything, was $63.50. Now with what you're incorporating into this year, our total fee will be $110. So basically we've gone up 40% just since 2007 in fees that we've had paid back to the city. And during that time as an organization, we have cut out, and we are continuing to cut out different ways that we operate so we can stay competitive in the monthly fee, or excuse me, the year league fee that we charge our teams to play. We've cut out our ASA certification. That was $21 per team so that we could, keep our fees down. And our concession agreement that we have with us, we use those fees, try to keep our league down because, as I say, if you go back on the paperwork, your New Richmond League, softball league, they include the softballs and umpires for them. The River Falls League, that's included in the fee of $335 a night, or $350. Excuse me, I'm sorry. River Falls pays $455 per year. New Richmond pays $350 per year per league, no matter what team you are on a single game night. On a doubleheader night, they pay more due to the fact of amount of games. So, there's a lot of ways of looking I didn't mean to jump ahead on your agenda or nothing, but
Oh, it's perfect.
kind of hard not to talk about concession
Right.
without talking about whole usage fees.
Great. Any questions or comments?
Because one more quick thing, if you don't mind,
Sure.
please.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Out of that concession fees that we do pay, we also have a $1,872.54 insurance liability that we carry on our alcohol sales, where we have insurance on that also, which in kind of the nuts and bolts of it is the city of Hudson receives our 8%. So basically, in a nutshell, if something drastic would happen, alcohol related, I mean, they're going to basically come after the Hudson Softball Association and the city of Hudson. Because in a nutshell, you guys are receiving concession sales in our agreement, so basically you are more or less a minor partner in our organization. So out of that 8%, we also pay insurance costs, and we pay our own umpires, our own stock supply, and maintenance, the whole 9 yards.
Do the other communities allow alcohol when they're on their softball field?
River Falls allows carry-on just like we used to do at the old ballpark by the post office back in the day. And New Richmond does not allow alcohol carry-on. They got their own stand, which everything's provided there. And New Richmond also has an idea, where we were never allowed to sell like any kind of a 12-pack, 6-pack prices. We were only allowed to sell per can. Where in New Richmond up there, they are allowed to sell via the 12-pack case products. So they get a little better break on some of their beer prices, but we're about the same as they are as far as overall pricing as product goes.
Mm-hmm. Tom, is our major not maintenance, but projects out there done? Because we put water systems in and everything else. Are those done and paid for at this point?
Irrigation systems
yeah.
in, paid for. We got a new roof for the bathroom concession stand. Dugouts are re-roofed.
We don't need any more lights out there. We're good as far as that goes.
Correct. I mean, like I say, I have, like you guys let me dig back into my figures, and I kind of threw together quite some figures, and I even was kind of set back at the figures overall. We've been up there basically 18 years is what it boils down to. We have paid the city of Hudson $162,062 for park usage, which would be lights, prep, and use. We've paid the city $22,963 for concession percentage. If we throw in the 2013 season, we're going to be over the $200,000 mark that we have given the city for using those fields. At our prior meeting in January, I do not have the records for what the boosters pay, the church league pays, anybody else pays as far as that goes. So I'm guessing overall that Grandview Ballpark is probably a substantial provider for the park system as far as necessary upkeep. We do pay our share. I don't want to harp that we're overpaying, but the figures are the figures, and Debbie has the figures like I have the figures, and I'm not trying to overdo it or nothing, but
is there any reason to expect that our expenditures will go up from last year? I mean, look, from 2011 to 2010, there was roughly a $5,000 decrease.
And I don't know if that was due to the less lights being used. Bottom line is that revenues for adding all the other people who use the field along with the Hudson Softball Association, the revenues generated in 2012 were $20,000. Our expenditures for Grandview Park, and I know that there's other things related other than the ball fields, there's parking lot lights, there's lights that the boosters use for the football fields, things like that, porta potties that the playground people, people using the playground use. But our expenditures for 2012 were $43,000 for that park. So, you know, we're coming up $20,000 short, although that is part of the city to, you know, have park systems for the community to
Correct.
use.
You know,
I don't think
we're
we're ever
not,
going to make money on our parks.
Right.
So I think that was some of our concerns, that we, as our budgets go down, we have to, you know, really look at trying to, you know, be creative and
Correct. Like I
be
said,
fair
we
to
also-
people that are using the.
we don't mind paying our share, but like I say, after you guys were good enough to us to let us have this stay till February so we get our numbers. And when, you know, you look at the numbers, you go, wow. And then, you know, like say, I gave you the names of the New Richmond contact, the River Falls contact. They were very generous in their time and information they gave me. You know, River Falls, I mean, I don't want to start beating a dead bush here, but they're in the same bracket as everybody else. Granted, their fields are nowhere near as good as ours. The Richmonds are better. I mean, it's just a matter of you go and review them. But the point is, River Falls goes through the same situation. You know, they keep their fees down. New Richmond, last year they allowed $11,000 to the association. Anything above that, they paid in. This year they dropped it down to, I think, 9. Same thing you were saying, Tom. Their expenditures are getting higher, so the softball is going to start paying more. But in that aspect, the city of New Richmond softball league runs that league. They have tournaments more or less every weekend out of the year, be it adult league or children's league or whatever, and all the money that goes through that park, they don't have to pay a user's fee for that park for a tournament. Everything goes back to the softball association, which in turn goes back into the park. So it kind of one hand works with the other hand, per se.
Right. Well, let's start with the, does anybody have any questions for Bill or Tom?
Just another quick question, as a follow-up on the concession sales and the money that we have, is there a separate Grandview fund for softball that's set aside? And what's sitting in that account anymore? Do we use that to
Yeah, we've used it to pay for the roof. We've,
Okay.
you know, all the improvements. We were going to try to improve 2 more fields, I believe.
Okay.
We've gone in the hole and then we repay it back with the concessions, but
Okay.
right now there's.
So it's getting poured back in?
It's put back, the concession money is being put back
Okay.
into the fields, and, you know, generally
Which
the
we appreciate
ball
that,
fields.
but
And
it'd be
that's what
nice
the,
if
that's what the agreement says too.
Okay.
On paragraph 2 of paragraph 4, where it says payment,
Okay,
the
yep,
last paragraph on the page.
okay.
The money goes back into the park.
I was just wondering if we were sitting on some amount of money there per se, or if it's turning over and being.
Pretty turned around lately.
Yeah. The other thing that, you know, the day use for the field usage is, we had a set rate for the softball, adult softball at $30 in 2012. The school district pays $30. Youth programs were $20. I don't know if there should be some discussion on that, the difference in price. I guess we've always tried to keep the youth programs a little bit less, but I don't know if the board would like to discuss that.
Well, let's take one thing at a time. Let's start with the concession agreement, and then we'll work back on the user fees. So, I guess the question is, do we want to keep it at 8% of revenues, or we want to lower it to maybe like 5% to keep it consistent with like we did for Doughboys? I know it's a different scenario and everything, but and the fees go to pay different things. So, or the percentage does. So I guess any discussion on keeping the same or lowering it a little bit or increasing it? That's the other option too. So,
I mean, you're still only talking about $1,100-1,200 a year. I mean, at 8%, it's not a huge amount of money.
correct.
And as long as we're pouring it back into the park, I don't know if there's a reason to change it.
Anyone? So is there a motion on the table to the concession agreement? Or could I get a motion, I mean,
I'll move to approve it as written.
as written? Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion?
I'd like to add one more thing, if I could, please. You know, I don't mind the kids up there. They do a good job and everything with the concession stand. But now you have the Hudson girls. They do have their own concession stand up there every game. The youth league is starting to bring in concessions. Like I just said at the meeting, Doughboy have their concession at their park at 5%. Why is it different at 5% down there and 10% up there, where we pay 10%, they pay 5%. The youth activities don't pay any percent. I mean, that's my question. I don't mind paying my fair share, but if we're at 10% and everybody else is far lower than us, at least half, that tells me the adults are taking the advantage here. I mean, I'm all for giving the kids their deal. Don't get me wrong. I'm totally for that. And then the money does go back in the park. I'd like to personally set it up where there is no percent, and the money we make off the concession stand would go back into the park with the Hudson softball working with the city to see what we need. Because granted, the roof needed to be done, but that roof needs to be done at any park building we have, and nobody pays for the roof building down at Berkmos on the skating rink. Nobody pays for the lights at the skating rink for user fees, you know, but we're playing ball up there at night. We buy the roof and we pay for the lights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another aspect of the situation.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. There's a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, concessions stay the same. Loudon City Council for that one. Going back to user fees. Primarily Grandview Park here. It was $30 in 2012, or as it's written there, for adult softball school district, $20 for Hudson Boosters. Light use per field is $45 and $25 for field prep. Proposed change is outside of the lights is 5% increase. Light usage per field is 22.2% proposed change, which is a $10 increase per night per field. So questions or comments about keeping them the same or accepting the increase as outlined by staff or something different?
Well, we had some discussion about the light fee. Do you remember what that was, Tom, last year? Was the expense of the lights?
Oh, where did we put that, Deb?
I don't know if that's buried under electric. I thought you had a different breakout on that.
Electric was,
Oh.
2012, the electric bill for the park was $20,000, $20,076.
Tom, do we have to raise these rates
No.
based on budget? Or
That was a
budget,
suggestion because
right.
our electric rate has just gone up so much from our operating budget was the reason for, our request for an increase.
seems like a steep increase.
I move that we stay at our 2012 rates for the park user fees.
Is it for Grandview Park? Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second?
Any further discussion?
Are you, is the motion for all of those categories?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
For
Across
all
the
the
board, we stay at
2000
the 2012 rate.
So not just the
across
light
board.
fee, but all of them?
Yeah.
For Grandview Park only, you're talking
Correct.
about, right? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So we'll keep those the same. Is our recommendation to council.
I just got one just a question, and for future reference. Okay, field prep. At one time, the Hudson Softball Association offered to do the field prep, and we'd like to offer that again for field prep. How about, or how do we, or when's the proper time to address a situation like that?
I think that you and Tom could work that out in your association.
Because
So you would have your own equipment and?
we would get a four-wheel up there, we'd get our own rake or drag, we would do, we get our own liner. I mean, we could do everything ourselves, because at some nights we're paying $100 a night to do the fields,
Right.
I know I could do them for half of that, but granted, you got the expense, but, that's just part of the game. I'm just trying to look for a future way to curtail our budget a little bit more so we can continue to play at an economical rate.
Right.
I'll be glad to visit with you about that.
Okay.
Sure.
Right, that's
Right,
fine.
Thank you.
Any particular timing, like after season, or I don't know how, or what's the proper time to approach you?
Next week if you'd like, or, next few weeks, just give me a call.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Well, appreciate it. Since we're on these fees here, Burton Field, let's just discuss that quick. It's $15 for daily diamond fee, and the proposed for 13 is to stay the same. So is there a motion to accept that, or make it, or,
It's included in the last one? No.
well, it's
For Burton and.
Sure. Motion to approve it. Is, Pat, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're gonna move on to item 8. I was gonna mention this earlier, and I should have been up front. We're removing item 8 from the agenda, which was review 2013 mooring policy and fees, just because we're not ready for that, and that'll be placed on the March agenda. Okay, item 9, discuss alternative options for dinghy storage and access to the mooring area. Now, we had a subcommittee meeting a week or two ago. Came up with some options of, we've listened to everybody over the last several years, incorporated some options that we like to have recommended to the city council. Let's review these options. Then what I'd like to do is, if possible, have a recommendation to the council that would include these options, and then maybe give a preference of the park board would like to see, number 1, for example. And I'll just go through these options here quickly for the people in the audience and people at home. So the possible dinghy storage options, option number 1 is what we had talked about previously, and that's a dock extension to the courtesy dock, whereas the city applies the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers for dock reconfiguration. The city purchases the dinghy dock, the storage dock extension, and or boat racks to house up to 49 dinghies. Afton Cruise Lines purchases and installs parts of a dock extension to house additional courtesy dock parking stalls for visitors to Hudson, and the mooring permit holders will be responsible for providing a dinghy per the criteria that we'll go over here shortly. Option 2 is a combination of the dock extension that I just described and one path or stair access approximately 1,000 feet into the mooring area. And why we say path or stair, an idea was, instead of having stairs built, we reconfigure rocks and create a safe passage down to the kind of a natural passage down to the water area. So the details in option 2 would be that the city constructs either a path or stair access from the dike road. We create a river rock bed with tie-down stakes on both sides of the access to accommodate up to 24 total dinghy boats per the criteria below. And the city purchases and installs dinghy storage dock next to the newly extended courtesy dock per option 1. Option 3, which would be the same as option 2 that I just described, only create 2 path or stair access points at approximately 500 and 1,000 feet into the mooring area, for a total of 3 access points to the mooring field. So the 2 accesses down to the lake, to the lake, it is a lake at that point, from Dyke Road, and then also have the dock extension. In lieu of the dock extension, the digging storage extension, the city may opt out at some point to install a 3rd path access from the Dyke Road near the beginning of the mooring field. Each mooring location would store up to 16 digging boats per the criteria below. Option 4 would be to do nothing, and all diggings must be launched from the shoreline. Now, the dinghy criteria that we came up with is that the dinghies are owned by the mooring unit permit holders and must meet the following criteria, which are white in color. Assigned mooring unit number must be clearly labeled and visible with 6-inch numbers on the starboard side of the bow. The size of the dinghy must be a standard size, which is generally 55 inches wide by 96 inches long. Additionally, a liability waiver will be created and signed by the mooring permit holders. So let's first start by talking about the options there. If there's any comments, feedback, questions. One more thing I want to say before that is on Thursday, there will be a meeting at 10 o'clock upstairs on third floor conference room with the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers. Tom will be there, myself, and Pat, and maybe whoever else wants to attend. They may think these options are possible. They may say no, tell them. They may have some other option. Keeping that in mind, when we make a motion for recommendations, we may want to include upon approval of the DNR and Army Corps, or some other option that they see fit. Personally, I like the option 3, which is creating a couple of path stair accesses down from the Dyke Road to the water, and also having the dock extension. I think that allows for 3 access points to the mooring field. It also allows for if there's a moorer who has a disability at some point, allows an access to the mooring field from that standpoint as well, using the courtesy dock pathway. That's my thought, but I would like to hear what you all have to say.
Well, I guess option 3 was probably my first choice. I guess the problem I have in all of this is still, what's the dinghy situation going to be like no matter which way we go here? Are we still going to have, groups of 16 dinghies gathered around some access point? Is that still going to just be spread out along the shore there? Is that kind of the vision here? Because the river is going to go up and down, so it isn't like you create a landing area for the dinghy. It's going to be on the rocks. Is that acceptable to everybody, and is that really what we envision this to have?
My understanding, my belief is that you have an access point, and then on each side of the access point there'll be an equal number of
8 on each side. If we had 3 points,
8 on each side or whatever it may be, and there'll be stakes in the pounded into the riprap or whatever, and the dinghies will be tied up to those stakes.
And then when the river comes up, we attach them to what? A different stake, another spot, another cable going up to the Dyke Road? I guess I'm a little concerned how this is all going to kind of work yet.
The dinghies will be owned by the mooring permit holder, and it'll be placed at their station or location at their own risk.
I know they suggested that they could put some type of river rock at the normal high water mark, or close to the shoreline, but maybe a little farther up. My concern with that is that gravel is going to continually to wash back into the river. So that was the proposal. I have concerns about that. The river rock washing back in. So I don't know if there's a solution to that.
But the key here is that the dinghies will have a look to them, a certain look to them, and if they're on a dock extension and or on, coming off the dike road, they're going to be lined up and looking as good as possible. So I know that's a concern of a lot of the council members. Am I correct about that, Kurt?
Yeah, I would say that you're absolutely correct. Just gauging, I haven't obviously taken a vote or anything, but anything that, my feeling is that anything that puts them along the dike road is going to have a hard time getting past.
Right. That's why we have options for both ways, and I think it gives the council a basis to choose from. Any other thoughts, Mike or Pat?
I agree that the council may not approve anything along the shore. Just reality is that probably is what's going to happen, in my opinion.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Tom? Okay.
Gordy and I met today, and we just talked over several things, but one idea was, as another option, but the cost was so expensive to have a ramp, like in the middle of the mooring field, have a ramp with a floating dock. River goes up, the dock goes up, similar to what's at the courtesy dock. Then have all the dinghies stored, have a sizable dock where the dinghies would be stored on that dock. Have a big enough dock, but that would be fairly big, 58 feet long out into the water by 21 feet wide. Just by going rough cost for a river dock system is, $150 per square foot. For dock and ramp, you're looking at, $400,000. Very, very expensive. But it would solve the solution of getting the docks, the dinghies off the dike. But I don't see that happening.
Right.
Very expensive.
I agree with you on that.
So, other concerns of mine, first of all, the gravel, the river is going to fluctuate. So that gravel that's near the shoreline or up 10 feet from the shoreline, I have concerns about that washing. And when the water does come up, like it does 2 years ago, it was up high all summer. So at that point, then is that gravel going to need to be raised up higher, or are those docks going to be banging on the riprap? I have concerns about that. One of the ideas was to have a concrete steps with a center railing coming down. I think that's personally a very good idea, except what's going to happen when the high water comes up? Portion of that railing could be underwater. What liability is that if a boat would come down the shoreline and hit that pipe? That was, whose liability is that? Other than that, before we, last week I called the DNR in Eau Claire, and we spoke. We said, first of all, before we come up with too many more ideas, we should see what what they may approve and what they're not going to approve. So we are going to have a meeting on Thursday morning, and we're going to kind of talk about all the options. Maybe you guys have some more options. We're going to see what they probably will allow and won't allow, and then we can probably go from there. Also, that'll help which direction we're going to go into.
Well, we'd like to thank you for the time that you've put into coming up with all these options. This is not an easy problem to solve. There are lots of folks that have interests that are involved in this. One of the positions, I guess, that we'd like to reiterate is that we'd love to be separated from all of the dock that has to do with the Duchess. Access to the mooring field from the end of that dock is still at least 225 feet before you even get to the first boat. So it only really serves the first couple of ranks of boats. Otherwise, it gets to be a very, very long row. We've talked continuously about safety. And one of the issues that is directly proportional to safety is how far you have to row that darn boat. So we prefer to see whatever funds you thought you were useful in investing into dinghy storage on the dock, we'd prefer to see that turned into either stairways or stair paths if we can find a way to make that work. That would put the dinghies where they are much closer to the boats and would decrease the rowing distances substantially. Now, I'm assuming that the dock that Gordy's working on can stand on its own financially, so whatever the cost of this add-on dock is really not an important issue with respect to that. The other item that I noticed in here is that there was some talk of the dock being a handicap access area. We feel that the existing docks at the launch ramps serve that purpose already. So it's really not needed to do that. Plus the fact that when you try to put, well, I'll just leave it at that. When we look at your options here, I had questions. Do we have any sense of the cost of the dock extension versus the cost of incremental cost of a path? I'm trying to get a sense of if they're similar in cost.
We have a entirely different battle to fight, and that is that the city council doesn't want the dinghies on the deck.
Okay.
Regardless of the path, stairway, whatever. Am I wrong, Kurt? I mean, that, from everything I get from talking to the mayor and everyone else, city council don't care. Row.
Well, at the end of the day, the city can...
That seems to be the point.
Well, just a moment ago, there seemed to be a lot of
So we're
interest in
trying to
option
come
number
up with
3.
options that we at least think we have a chance of getting to do, and a larger dock there is better than no dock and having to launch at the boat launch.
Well, option number 3 also has paths that are associated with it. In fact, you even note in your option that at some point you might do a third. We'd suggest maybe modifying that option a little bit and saying, boy, let's just do 3 of them to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate that. So, but
option 3 is what we'd really like to hopefully accomplish.
Right.
But the bigger problem we're going to have, and I think it's going to be important for you guys to be able to express that at the city council meeting, to turn their minds as to why we should have dinghies along the dike road and how it could be done in a fashion that looks good and overcomes their objection to them being there.
Mm-hmm.
What is their objection?
Make sure we understand clearly what those objections are. We've heard that there are appearance objections.
I think that's a major
I think
one.
the biggest one is
part of that is just orderly storage of the dinghies. That's something that could be handled by simply making sure that the anchor points are all in a row.
I think appearance is the big thing. One good thing we found out is that the city attorney said that we can include the dinghies into the mooring permit.
Excellent.
And that's, that can be owned by the mooring permit holder. It does not have to be owned by the city of Hudson. So that's one thing. But we're very, any way to make this fly on your end is that things have got to be orderly and they've got to look like they're in order and they're the same. So that any chance to pass city council.
As a group, we would love to have it.
I don't know if I should say this, but it's my personal belief, but I'm going to anyways, is that I think that whatever comes out of this committee, you should probably try and get behind and have a unified front. And obviously you can express your concerns at city council as well, but at the end of the day, you should try and have a unified front, because I know that didn't sit well with the city when we thought we had or the city council, we thought we had a solution last time, and that didn't go well. So just keep that in mind as you guys meet and prepare for Monday night. So,
well, if the park board was comfortable going forward with option 3 and would look at in lieu of the dock storage, adding a third path, that would be good for us. We could work with that.
Okay.
If you have 3 points that are equidistant on the across the mooring field, it reduces those rowing distances that we're so concerned about to something that is, while more than it has been in the past, at least it seems more manageable.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, one question, I'm just really struggling with this gravel, I'm sorry.
With the
I'm really
river
struggling
rock.
with this gravel and how, the water level fluctuating. And I know we've talked about it before, is that if we did have 3 sets of stairs, 8 boats per side, that'd be 16 dinghies per stairway, right? So 8 per side. If we were to construct some kind of a wooden structure that would accommodate 8 dinghies, uniform size, and we could construct that and maybe have some type of cable or whatever, and if the water would come up, we could actually raise that up parallel to the steps.
So in lieu of the river rock, you're saying that we would put a dock on the surface of the dike. That's what you're saying.
Just a dinghy hole, something constructed to hold the dinghies.
Like a skid, you're visioning? Something like a skid
And
of
then
some
raise
kind
it
that
up
you could
as
raise.
the water comes up.
Stacking, no?
No, I think what I
A
hear
flat
you saying
rack
is.
that would hold 8 dinghies.
It's like cradles, maybe cradling.
Just like your crates that you have them on right now. Just, you know what I mean? Just those pallets that you have them, only something that's constructed that would accommodate 8 boats.
They can
have
fluctuate.
2 cables go up, and then just lower that up according to
As
the
the water level came up, you could scoot that up.
Like
The
those prefabricated things for putting your parking your
If the water is,
personal jet on.
if the water's going up, if the water's going up, it would just, you'd
Spray.
creep it up the hillside along with it.
Tom, do you know what I mean about those prefabricated?
Yeah, I got a folder right here.
White ones?
Yep.
And then I looked at that whole idea and the cost, and basically that's what you guys are gonna have a problem with probably. The cost is in lieu of doing wood ones, the cost is like, it's the same cost as putting a dock at this thing for all for everyone.
I think,
That would be about.
So solving
That
the
would be
problem.
60, that would be about, if you can think of stairways costing 10,000 apiece, those all that dock space costs $65,000 to.
I think if I could add a
60.
little bit on this. My name's Ray Lehman. I've been out here since 1979. I've also been the chairman of the Afton Park Commission, so I've got, I think I've expressed this before, I've got empathy for the situation that you fellows are in here right now. I'll address the concept of something that slides up and slides down. I immediately think of maintenance and storage of that particular thing. The river can go up or down 6 inches in a day easily. It can go up many feet. It just sounds like way more man hours being put into something down there where we probably don't need that. As far as the rock that we've talked about down there, Tom, I think that we tried class 5 along some paths, and we did an angled path because we were trying to get an ADA compliant path going down into the Steamboat Park south of Selma's, and the class 5 does not last at all. We ended up using larger river rock next to it, and that helped quite a bit. We're not talking about smaller river rock. It's relatively large. I think probably the largest problem with the river, or with that type of rock getting into the river, is going to be kids down there throwing it into the river, and that's probably the extent of it. And that happens right now with the rock that's there. Anything that's around, they'll pitch it. The concept of having more stairways along there, we look at it also as a security situation, where we would have more people down there. I, for one, welcome people of all sorts of races, creeds, and colors. If they want to come down and go fishing down there, God bless them. Most of the people that I've seen have been with families, wives, children, stuff like that. Sounds like a fine thing. I know we had one time attempted to build a fishing dock in Afton, and there was a hue and cry that those people would be coming down there into our little city, and it was unfortunate. And I'm hoping that isn't the case here at all. Anyway, so that, does that address some of your concerns, Tom?
So the river rock you're talking about is,
Are they 4 to 10 inch?
It could be 4 to 6 inch minus.
and those
It's not going to go
where you were
far.
talking about before, they didn't really move as much.
How high would you need to go? I mean, you're expecting to go from the normal water level 10 feet up, 12 feet up for the shoreline?
As I look at it, what I've done with rock, I'd want to know, what the angle is and what's the angle of repose of the certain type of rocks, because there's a different, rocks will have a different angle that they'll slide, and so you have to we'd have to look at that. But I would think that it would be a lot easier for all parties concerned if a truck backed up to the wall and just dumped down and we just covered it from the top on down, rather than trying to have rock from the river up. Why would we try and jump over this? Why not just cover it down? Rock is really not that expensive by the truckload.
Right.
When you get into these projects.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
that's some of my experience. If there's any others, be welcome to talk to you about it.
Thank you. Well, let's I don't know if you want to make a specific recommendation to the council with one of these options or something else, or if you want to do a recommendation for all of them and have a preference, Pat.
I'd like to see us pick option 3 as our recommended solution, and let them, and we'd settle for the others, but what we really want is option 3.
Okay.
And that it behooves us, if a remaining issue with them, to solve the visual, for lack of a better word, visual pollution. If we can solve that issue as we go, great.
Okay.
At least we've gotten over that hurdle, and now we're solving just that specific problem in a fashion that is safe for the mooring people and visually appealing, or not distractive
Okay.
to them.
So, in summary, then you're recommending
Option
that we recommend these options to the city council, with option 3 being the preferred
Our preferred choice.
choice. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
There's a second. Is there further discussion?
I guess my concern is, they've made it pretty clear that they don't want to be attached to the courtesy dock. I mean, they've made it clear, at the last meeting and tonight again. And just by us, for the money being spent on the dock, maybe we should, consider using that money for having a better stairway access. On the, you know what I mean? If it seems it's very apparent they don't want to be there. So why invest the money in that, on the excursion dock area? So.
Well, I think that
In lieu of digging
in lieu
storage
of
on the dock extension.
in lieu of no dock or no option 1 or 2, then you're looking at option 4, which is they'd have to go from the shoreline. So.
But the problem I see going forward is if we have 2 stairs and 1 dock extension, and none of them want anything to do with the dock, who's going to be on that dock?
We would assign
Based on
location. So the first third of the mooring field roughly would come from the dock, and so on, and so second third to the next path, and the last third down the way. So
Just going cost-wise, we're still looking at, $120,000 to $150,000 investment into this courtesy dock. You know what I mean, with the additions, and if they don't want to be there, what it
Then
makes.
let's not put that on. And
My feeling is if we can get 2 past the city council, we can get 3.
then let's not do the extension to the dock and just do the 3 access points and
If
save them
that's
money.
And then the other good point of this is, staying away from the excursion dock, is the DNR might clearly tell us on Thursday that, that we can't have additional docks on the river. That's a possibility. If we do all our work on the shoreline, then it's a matter of dealing with the DNR as far as riprap permitting and things like that, and getting a zoning permit from the city of Hudson.
And that
If we don't disturb more than so many feet of shoreline, we don't really have to get a permit from the DNR. Might be a riprap permit, which would be easier than putting another pier out on the scenic riverway.
And how do you feel about the river rock?
I know it has to be cleaned and washed, river rock, you know, to be approved by the DNR. Class 5, it'd have to be washed Class 5, but I think the river rock that they're talking about is
Right.
very large, but it's rounded, and
Well-
I wouldn't have a problem with that personally, but
Getting back to option 3,
So
what option 3 says that if the city decides not to do a dock because it's too cost prohibitive or whatever other reason, it's denied by the DNR Army Corps, they may opt out and decide to do the third path stairway access anyway. So I still think option 3 is valid. I still think we apply for the dock extension whether we use it or not. That way it's permitted. Maybe we use it for some other use at some point down the road. So
Yeah, at least we have the permit for it.
the permit for it. So I still think option 3 should be, as Pat said, preferred because it covers both scenarios. You know, whatever it may be, it gives some flexibility to the city. So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion about the recommendation?
I guess the more I think about it, it seems like 3 access points closer to the mooring field is preferable. I don't know if we can amend option 3 to be the same as option 2 plus 3 access points, but that might, I guess I'm thinking of 3 stairway type access points, not 2 access points in the dock, but three stairway type or rock-based type access points would be probably my preference.
So,
Now, I think in addition to that, I think we have an obligation to look at the mooring policy as part of the package and somehow create the language that dinghies are part of the mooring requirement. Right now, it's kind of left in limbo and it's not really spelled out.
Well, I thought we'd do that at our next meeting just
Okay.
because we're not sure which direction the city council is going to go yet.
Okay,
So,
all right.
One other thing that I foresee on Monday is, you know, to have any chance of getting this past city council will involve uniformity amongst the dinghies. So I know that they're gonna want that addressed before.
I think we addressed that somewhat. I don't know if, you know, we did go online and we got the common or the sizes for a dinghy, which is about 55 inches wide by about 92 to 96 inches long. You know, at our subcommittee meeting, we talked about colors, white possibly with a second color, white or blue, or, you know, that was something that we'd have to discuss also.
With respect to length, 92 inches is less than 8 feet, and that's a very, very small dinghy. 8 feet would be the absolute minimum. I think there are many dinghies that are available that are at 10 feet as well. I think given the distances that we're going to have to traverse out there, a little larger boat's a good thing. And we're not talking about a big fishing boat. We're just talking about something that's not the smallest dinghy that you can buy. So we would suggest something in that 12 feet, maybe even 14. In fact, there are questions like, what's really wrong with someone wanting to use their canoe, which is even a little longer boat?
I think the rainbow guy got, you know, the rainbow canoe last year was the
That
one
was
that
too
caught
much.
most people's eye.
Let's talk about color just for a second. The current stock of dinghies is more than one color. I would say mostly they're white, but there are boats that are blue, they're green, they're red. And the boats that are in good repair with good surfaces, I don't think represent an eyesore by any means. So as you think about that, I would try not to be too constraining in terms of how you look at color. The negative effect on a number of people on the moorings today would be that they would have to go out and spend another $800 to $1,000 to replace a perfectly good dinghy that's been in service for years. So I would be judicious in my in my choice of colors. Perhaps there's something about condition or seaworthiness that you could use as an alternative.
All right, thank you.
So generally,
We have
the
a-
width is about 55 inches or,
I think if you're at 55 inches, is that most of the dinghies that are out there?
Even 4 feet.
Yeah. So if that's over 4 feet, that's 4.5 feet. That's probably good.
so if we were to do a range, 4.5 to 5 feet, 4.5 to 55 inches wide by 8 to 10 feet, up to 12, I don't know.
I would suggest 8 to 12
8 to
myself.
12?
Guys,
we have a
we have a
gentleman-
motion.
We don't need that now.
We have a motion on the floor. We have to take care of that right now. So we can have that discussion later. We can finalize the criteria and stuff later. So
Well, my concern is we bring a workable solution to the council now. I mean, we're running out of time here. And something that they can live with. And I think some of that's going to be some uniformity issues. I do.
It's going to be one of the major, and I mean, I know that part of it makes sense to wait to see what happens, but I think they're going to want to see exactly what lies ahead. So I'm not sure what the best order to do it all in.
okay. Well, we have a motion that deals with these options on the table. Is there any further discussion pertaining just to these options? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that is approved. Now, if you flip over on the second page or the back page of that, there's some things that we need to do. At some point, whether it's this meeting or the next one. One is to extend the 2013 deadline for mooring unit applications to April 1st. Currently, it's March 1st. Is that correct, Deb? So is there a motion to take care of that issue?
That would require an ordinance change, right? Isn't that what you said? That's an ordinance. So right now, she's recommending to include it more in a policy, that you'd have a fluctuation of changing it in the policy versus the ordinance, so it would more go into where Catherine recommended an ordinance change instead. And we really don't see an issue with that changing the date, actually, because they'll all be in and we don't have to make a decision.
I think we're just talking about it for this year.
Right.
So that we recommend the council that they get extended for 1 month. I'm not sure that is a.
It's really,
I don't know if that was one of her recommendations, Deb.
we talked on the phone about it, and
Okay.
it didn't seem to be, that's probably something that would be pulled out of the ordinance and put
Use
into
more
as
as
a
a policy.
Yeah.
That's something we could
Right.
change if
And
we
then-
feel that we need to for some reason, so
And
take
then
it
she
out
would
of the
include,
code.
yeah, and she would include it into the recommended section to have the park board adopt policies and make changes as needed. Yes.
Okay, well, let me just go down the list and we'll come back to that. We need to modify the mooring policy to include dinghies with respect to approved criteria and location access for whatever option is approved by the council. We need to approve the 2013 mooring fee schedule. Again, that needs to wait until we decide or find out what option is chosen by the council.
4 is not an issue.
4 is not an issue. 5, we need to review the ordinance and make those changes, once we have further direction. And 6, we need to include in the lease with the Afton Cruise Lines. There's 5 things there, which we'll get to at the next issue on our agenda tonight. Catherine had suggested that we change section 181 14D and include a paragraph 9, which says that the park board may adopt more detailed policy rules for the mooring area as needed, subject to the approval of the city council, the common council. Again, we can do that tonight or on March 1st. So I guess I'm struggling here, looking for some feedback as to what you guys want to do.
Well, I don't know that we need the language tonight. Catherine's going to be at the meeting, and Catherine's going to be able to say, yeah, I can amend the language to do it in such a fashion and remove any obstacles on that part. I agree. We may need to tighten up language in terms of appearances and those kinds of things. If that's what it's going to take to get it through council, then maybe we need to tackle that now and do that. Can we do it in such a broad brush fashion that it still leaves us wiggle room?
I think so. Kurt, your thoughts?
Or can't the council trust us well enough that we're going to come up with good enough decisions, even though we've done all the other parks all these years until now?
No, I think in lieu of us having our stuff done here, there could be some contingencies on the council side.
Yeah, I guess my feeling is that we need some direction from the council as to what direction, what path to take. Then we can make recommendations on, okay, if they want option 3, okay, here's how we can get that done. And this is how we're going to do it. And then we can, at our March meeting, make those recommendations so they get approved in March prior to the season.
Preliminary approval, so to speak, so we can come back with the final saying, okay, here's language for the dinghy that everybody can agree on that makes sense. Here's how we're going to solve these problems and do these kinds of things based on the feedback we got from the council as to what their concerns were if we went down this direction.
So maybe we're done with this issue for now.
I think it makes no sense, because just say worst case scenario, the council sees number 4. Well, then we don't need to talk about uniformity of dinghies.
Correct. That's exactly right.
So.
Okay.
So what about the deadline? How are we going to leave that?
Well, I think we should recommend to the council that we extend it for 30 days and go from there.
Yeah, I move that we do that.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mike. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Recommendation passes. Okay. So let's move on to item 10, which is review of the courtesy dock lease agreement. Tom, you want to introduce that? Mr. Jarvis is here.
Again, the agreement, the last agreement was for 3 years. It was signed on March 31st of 2010. We tried to work, one of our ideas prior to, signing this agreement was to see how everything works out with in regard to the storage of dinghies and the addition of the dock. So I guess we're not quite there yet. We haven't decided if we're going to proceed with the dock extension. If we are, then there's going to be some money involved there. I did talk with Mr. Jarvis. He said if there is one thing that he would like to see change is maybe instead of having a 3-year lease is to have a longer lease so he can plan better, and it's just for his major investments that he can space all his expenses out for that he can plan for 10 years out. I'm not saying 10 years, maybe 5 or 10 years with a 5-year review. We talked a little bit about that. And that's about where we're at with that. So
now, I know you talked to Gordy, and he can come up and talk in a minute here, or now if he so chooses. But is it Afton Cruise Line's intent to proceed with turning the courtesy dock around and doing their reconfiguration, regardless of what happens?
I can let Gordy address that. Per our conversation today, I think he would like to proceed with that. pending, our meeting with the DNR, seeing if that's possible. I know we talked about this current agreement states that he can have 2 cruise line boats on the dock. He has talked to me a little bit about maybe the addition of a smaller boat that seats up to 30 people, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct, Chairman, park members. Whatever the case may be, we're sort of here to help the situation with the dinghies, but that's not our real intent of being here. We've always just said, look, here's what we have. If we can provide a service to you and help them along and help the city, we're willing to do that. Meanwhile, we still have to keep moving forward with our agreement with the city, and our intent is to try to apply with the city to turn the charter part of it, the docks, in a way that works a little bit better for the operation. So if you choose to apply to have some additional use for the city for the future, we can do that. If you choose that you didn't want to do that and you just want to apply for what we need to use it for, that would be fine too. So we're really pretty flexible either way. Whatever the case may be, we're asking for a longer term lease is because it seems that 3 years keeps coming up pretty fast ever since we've been involved. It's 3 years, and it's hard for us to invest money every year into something that at the end of 3 years comes up if we're going to be there or not. So we are really requesting for a 10-year lease, and I told Tom that if you'd like to have a 5-year renewal period of, in other words, we have a 10-year agreement, we can review it in 5 years, maybe the rates have to go up, there's some costs to the city that has to be shared from us that we're unaware of and that you are, we'd be more glad to sit down and review those costs at that time. But we need to get something a little bit more substantial for us to keep moving forward and making the changes, because once we move the boats up here, it's a significant amount of money to keep operating the way we are. So that's where we're at. Again, we're here to try to help you and help us at the same time. And so whatever works out. I mean, it's very evident to me that they, I want to say the dinghies, boats would prefer to have 3 landings coming down and be in that area. So that's something that you made your options with tonight, and it's there. And I don't want to repeat myself, but if you want us to help with that on that far end, we can do that. So, and we'll just keep moving along. That's all we have to do is keep moving along. But I will let you know time's really clicking away, because it takes time to get stuff built, and we've already missed 2 openings already. So if we had to move the pilings or whatever we have to do, but I think it's very, very good on your part, Tom, to come up with the idea of meeting with the Corps and the DNR and laying that all out and being forward and up front and where we want to be. And you're right, they might say, hey, what you got is what you got. And they might not want to do anything. But on the other hand, I don't think we're asking for something that's unusual.
Now, if the Corps and the DNR and the council agree, and you are able to flip the docks around and do your extra configuration, are we still talking about extending the courtesy dock area by, what was it, like 7 or 8 slips or whatever to allow for more?
Well, I think if we weren't going to do to store the other boats, if we weren't going to be storing that area, we probably wouldn't add that part on. I don't think it'd make a lot of sense to add that part on. I think we'd shorten that up a little bit. On the other hand, if the city chooses no, maybe in the future we might want to do something with that, then we would go ahead and add that addition on. But I think it was an additional 80 feet. I don't have the drawing in front of me, but I think it was an additional 80 feet, not including the storage of the small boats.
Oh, because I thought that was 84 feet with the...
Yeah, according to the drawing, the total distance with the dinghy storage is 84 feet.
Okay.
The dinghy storage looks like it's about 41 feet.
41
So
feet,
we're
yeah.
looking at about 40-some feet.
So we'd have a 40-foot extension, yeah.
I have been requesting, a lot of the business people have, said, are you ever going to add on to there, so they
Sure.
can get more boat storage. So I would hope that, you would consider that or,
Well, I think that we need to make that part of the agreement, is that.
Yeah, and
if-
that's-
I know that
fine
it's been
with us.
requested to get more boats parking down there for the people to come in and, visit and eat and shop.
Yep,
And I recognize that that's a cost, and
Yep.
you said that you would, previously that you would bear that. I'd almost do that in lieu of any rent payment, because I know that is a very expensive cost.
So, I mean, so
But
if you want to
and
add
I
the,
understand over a long period of time, you'd want to have that, recoup that investment too, so, Pat.
And Gordy, if I remember correctly, I was here when we first did the lease with you. You wanted a much longer lease even in the beginning.
oh, yeah,
And we kind of pared it back to, let's see how it goes. If we're gonna
Right.
dance well together, then enter into something longer, and I think we should.
well,
It makes sense.
the waltz has been going on for quite some time, so,
How
yeah,
how
you're
many
right.
years have you been there, Gordon?
I think this will be our 5th renewal, if I'm not mistaken.
5th 3-year renewal.
Yeah. Yeah. Close to it. So, no, but I mean, if you want the 81 feet and that's what you choose, not a problem. That's not an issue on our end of it. We'll still go forward with that. And even if they decide that they won't let us turn the docks around and make those changes, I did give Tom one more option. Just per se, they say, no, we don't want that. We could still put an addition onto that far end. And then also, we would, on the charter part of it, we would leave the main dock the way it is. We'd still put another pier out so that we could get the charter boats the way we want them. That's another option that I tried to get ready for the Corps and the DNR in case something came up.
Mm-hmm.
So then we pick up, you'd pick up 8, 10, well, about approximately 10 more boats that would come into the city per day, per hour. Yeah.
With the current configuration, with the addition of the
Yep.
excursion boats going north and south.
Correct. Yeah. 'cause
Without
we-
any addition.
Correct. Right.
So,
Yep. And if we add the other 81 feet on, the
Yeah.
way the docks are right now, then we'd pick up additional boats on top of that. So, yep.
There are a few points that we would need to add into the lease. So if we make a recommendation, I'd like to have these included. And that's, if you look on the to-do list, number 6A, the right of city personnel and mooring unit permit holders, the right to ingress and egress across the Afton Cruise Line docks, the city dock extension is agreed if it ever is constructed. The right of the city of Hudson to construct and attach a dock to the courtesy dock owned by Afton Cruise Lines, if that's constructed. C isn't applicable. D, Afton Cruise Lines will be responsible for the cost to reconfigure, purchase, and install the courtesy dock area to allow for better ship access and increase courtesy dock extensions and slips as approved by the Hudson City Council. And then E, update the lease agreement with Afton Cruise Lines to include the additional dock layout, which includes dinghy storage again, if that's
Sure.
what's approved. So that's all got to be morphed into this agreement in order to make a dock extension possible at some point.
Of course, as applicable.
As applicable, right? So, but we have to, whether we agree to, build the dock or not, I think we should always, like I said, we should apply for it so we have that option in the future, whether it's this year or 10 years from now.
Correct.
So we have that option to do that. Maybe the dock extensions for something other than dinghy storage. So.
And it's a timely. I mean, it takes time to get that done. It's
Right.
the amount of paperwork, but I mean the process with the public hearings and that you're going to probably have to go through. So that the Corps will hold and the DNR will hold, and then of course they send out to all the communities around. If you have any objections. So it's a process.
So I think the issues we have, or what we need to look at here, is length of lease, rent, and then also just adding those other clauses to the lease for the city council to review. Any thoughts from the board?
You gonna do that? You gonna have staff do that, or do you need a formal motion from us recommending it? How do you want to handle that?
I think we should have a motion from us to recommend.
So moved.
To do what?
What you just said. So we have them add the language, that we have them, do everything for the lease so that it's brought up to express not only what Gordy wants, but also those clauses that are of issue with us.
So they're looking at 10 years,
Yeah.
the clauses, and then what about rent? We haven't really touched about rent. The same, increased, waive it in lieu of dock improvements.
Do we have any idea what it was to begin with?
I can find out.
The rent?
It's always been like
where do we start?
I think we start off like, I think it was like $600.
Yeah.
600, I think we're at 13 right
11.
now.
1,100.
11.
11? Okay. Well, that must be my new number, huh?
I had it somewhere, but I don't know where it's at.
Thoughts on rent? To
Well,
include in the motion.
I think waiving it might be extreme, my opinion. And I think if we're going to go 10 years, it's nearly doubled in presumably 13, 15 years, 12, 15 years. If we're going to go 10 years, I think we need to build some steps in there.
Okay.
Because to stay at what, to be where he is today, 10 years from now, people might think, what were those guys thinking back in 2012?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you have a recommendation?
Why don't we just have them, my motion is
Mm-hmm.
for them to come back to us, for our staff to come back to us with language worked out for our new lease, taking all of this into account,
Okay.
so we can approve it at our next meeting and take it to council before the 31st. And they've been at the meeting, the issues that have to go into it, and
Okay.
I trust that they can do that well enough that they come back to us with a lease that basically we just have to approve.
Right. That makes more sense to me now. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So, Tom, we could even after Thursday and Monday, we'll have more direction with
We'll
what
have
to
a
do
little
with
more
this too.
idea
So,
which direction we're going,
Yep.
Okay.
And it'll make sense whether or not we're gonna do a dock in lieu of
Right.
of a charge, and any of that stuff will all be known by then, but we'll be able to come up with what we want for a lease that
So put
covers
that on,
everybody.
Put that on the meeting.
Because we want Gordy to stay. I think.
Okay. Number 11 is project update, parks projects. Tom.
Oh, gosh, this has basically been time consuming, all of this. So I hope we get some resolve of this very soon on our end. So we were requested to do a 5-year capital request. We're still working on that. We submitted some projects for Burton Field and some improvements for some of our capital ideas. We can maybe have that finalized maybe by next meeting and see how that goes. I'm not sure how the city council will handle some of our requests. Other than that, skating rinks are still open. We've had a lot of nuisance snows the last week or so, but we still keep them open. I know they're being used.
You're sure sledding.
Sliding a lot, yeah. So other than that, we're still working on, whenever we get a chance to maintain park benches and picnic tables and things like that when we're not plowing. So.
Right. So I noticed that we have a letter stating that the property survey for Lakefront Park wasn't completed due to the weather. They're gonna finish that in the spring, and we should have a meeting out there to walk at that at some point, so we should look at that for our May meeting, maybe,
Hopefully.
And yeah,
potentially.
another thing that Mr. Malik and I were discussing when we were talking about the Indian Mountains the other day is that the Tourist Information Center has a few shelters, and some of them are just a single roof where you can maybe get a park bench underneath. If we could salvage those, maybe that walk path, we could incorporate those along some, in the walk path. So we're trying to get see if we can get those in the next few weeks. I know they're gonna start demolition February 18th. So hopefully we can get a cost on getting that garage and maybe move that out to Grandview Park for storage for, our tractor, although maybe we won't need it if the softball associate takes over, but we'll see how that all goes. So I guess that'd be the next thing we're really working on, is trying to get a plan for some of those shelters.
Great. Any questions or?
Those shelters, are they enclosed three sides, or is it just a back?
It's just a roof, isn't it?
It's a roof, but they do have some limestone brick around.
Have you looked close enough to determine if you'll be able to salvage that limestone good enough that to use it again, or are you going after the wood structure?
Well, if we can get that limestone off and still salvage the 8x8 posts, if it's too much work, maybe we can cut the top off and salvage the roof, and then maybe we'll have to just
Restrict the posts.
But ultimately, you're going after the wood structure, not the limestone.
Roof, the roof structure, basically. Yeah, if we can save the post, great. If it's too time consuming, we'll just cut it off. And
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Other business for information purposes only and upcoming agendas. Anybody have anything?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.